If you are into combat in Albion Online, whether that's PvE or PvP, you know it depends on grinding it out and slowly crawling your way up the food chain. But that's only half of the equation. The other crucial part is of course item power. You can be the best fighter, but with low IP your opponent can sleep and sneeze and you will still lose. But with high IP you can really kick some ass. Like even my game illiterate girlfriend can smash her face against the keyboard and win. So let's talk about how to squeeze out every drop of IP you can from your gear. There are 5 ways to increase item power, including 2 that many players overlook. The first one is tiers. Any piece of gear comes in 8 tiers, and obviously higher tiers have higher item power. Open your Destiny board by clicking B, and you can see everything here. Tier 1 items aren't listed on the board, but that's the measly sword you got for free on Tutorial Island, which had a staggering item power of 100. Now you can take your first swipes at mobs until you gather 250 fame to complete this very first node. Then you're finally allowed to hold something a little less embarrassing. And still on Tutorial Island, you craft your very own tier 2 weapon from these options. These are very generic and give you 500 item power. As you use it and gather fame by doing PvE combat, you complete the Journeyman node of a skill, which lets you use tier 3 items. These start to subcategorize into more specific weapons, and they all have an item power of 600. As you use these general tier 3 items, you will do the long and arduous journey. Just kidding, it's really not that hard. You will quickly reach level 1 in that item category, and when you do, you can now use tier 4 items. This is where each item branches out into many specializations, so you start to have much more choice. Tier 4 items have a base item power of at least 700, but some of them can have more, if they are artifact items, Avalonian items, or crystal items. And for other categories, you also have arena items and mist items. You can check out the details for yourself in this item category of the Destiny board. As you use any of these tier 4 items, you will start to level up in this general item category. And you can see that as you reach higher levels, you will unlock the ability to use higher tiers for all items in the category. At level 10, you can switch to using tier 5. At level 30, you can use tier 6. At level 60, tier 7. And at level 100, you can use tier 8. This level and tier progression is the same for every piece of gear. As you can tell, you will need to farm a lot of fame. And I've just dropped an amazing video explaining how you can get the most fame. Go and check it out. You get fame much faster as a premium member or by having learning points. If you ever decide to buy some of them, make sure to use my creator code. That is, if I manage to become one. Each of these tiers adds 100 extra IP to the item. So for normal gear, meaning they're not artifact or the other more special items, the normal ones are always the first 3 listed here. Tier 4 has a base IP 700, Tier 5 800, Tier 6 900, Tier 7 1000, and Tier 8 has 1100. The more special items, as I've mentioned earlier, have a lot more. So you might be thinking now, I should use the more special items because they give more IP. But actually, if you want to maximize IP, the smartest thing to do is to use one of the 3 general type items because of something called mastery bonus. As you're using an item, as I've just said, you are leveling up in its item category. But at the same time, you're also leveling up in that specific item, which is called specialization. And it's this last level of nodes on the Destiny board. The specialization levels increase much slower than the general ones, and these have nothing to do with using higher tiers. But you get extra bonuses on your IP, which compound with each level. For general type items, for example the broadsword, you get +2 bonus on this particular specialization, and 0.2 bonus for all specializations in this category. That may not sound like a lot, but this is per level. So at level 10 of Broadsword Combat Specialist, you get plus 20 IP for the broadsword, and you also get plus 2 IP for all the swords in the sword category, including the broadsword too. So in total, you get plus 22 IP for the broadsword when you reach specialization level 10. If you reach specialization level 100, that now becomes plus 200 IP from the specialization bonus and plus 20 from the all swords bonus. So plus 220 IP on the broadsword, and all of your swords get plus 20 IP. That's why it really pays off to level up multiple specializations within a category, because the category bonus will add up from each one. And you should start with one of the 3 normal type items, because the more special items have much lower category bonus. For example, artifact swords, such as the Clarion Blade, give only 0.01 bonus to the other swords. The Crystal Sword, which is the Infinity Blade, gives only a 0.025 bonus to the other swords. If I level up the broadsword to 100, all the other swords will get plus 20 IP. But if I level up the Clarion Blade to 100, other swords will only get plus 10 IP. And with the Infinity Blade, other swords only get plus 2.5 IP. If you really want to maximize IP, you should of course level up all the specializations, so you get all the category bonuses. But you should start with the 3 general type ones, because those give you the biggest boost to all the items in that category. If you have a favorite weapon you want to stick to, and you don't want to work on the others, you can also just use your combat credits. This is where you store fame when you use a weapon that you've already leveled to 100. And you can basically use it to instantly level up any other combat item. So don't just leave the credits there. Use them to get extra mastery bonuses. By the way, these specializations can go higher than 100. But above 100, you have to buy the level upgrades with increasingly huge amounts of silver, so getting to level 120 will cost you a fortune. It's more efficient to level up all the other specializations and get the passive bonuses from all of them. For example, leveling up to 120 would cost almost 20 million silver plus an additional 50 million combat fame credits, and reaching it gets you plus 42 IP, plus 40 for the item and 2 for all. For that amount of credits you can instantly boost 3 weapons of your choice to level 100. You can get more IP plus 50 for all by leveling up 2 other general type item and 1 other artifact item, and that doesn't cost you any silver at all. Now, the next way to increase your IP is enchantments. No, not that kind of enchantment. You can see these on an item in the diamonds at the bottom of the border. Enchantments are equivalent to increasing the tier. Enchantment level 1 is color green, and it's like adding 1 extra tier level to your gear. Enchantment level 2 is blue, which is the equivalent of adding 2 tier levels. The third one is purple, which is like adding 3 tier levels. And the fourth one is yellow, which is like adding 4 tier levels. So, to give you an example, this fire staff is tier 4 with enchantment level 1. So it's the same item power as a tier 5 fire staff with no enchantment. This is great because at low level I would not be able to equip a tier 5 fire staff yet, but I can use a tier 4 one with 1 enchantment. And it's as if I'm using a tier 5 already. However, it is still worth it to use higher tier items, because they give you an additional bonus called the Mastery Modifier. Basically, you remember the Mastery bonus we talked about? The combination of your specialization bonus and all item bonuses. Well, higher tier items give you an extra IP boost based on that Mastery bonus. A tier 5 item will take your Mastery bonus and give you plus 5% on top of it. So for example, if my Mastery bonus is 331, then I will get 5% extra, or 17. A tier 6 item gives you a 10% bonus on your mastery bonus, so in this case that would be 33. Tier 7 gives you 15%, so in this case 50, and tier 8 gives you 20%, so for me 66. That's why when I take a 4.3 broadsword, it has the same base IP as a flat 7 broadsword, but I actually have much more IP from the flat 7 one because I have a pretty big mastery bonus from reaching level 100 in multiple nodes, and that gives me a pretty big mastery modifier bonus on top of it. This is how the game incentivizes you to actually use higher tier equipment. Finally, the real smart players also pay attention to something called item quality. Any piece of equipment you buy in any tier comes in 5 different types of quality: normal, good, outstanding, excellent, and masterpiece. You can see the item quality by looking at an item's border color, but when you're scrolling through the marketplace, that can be a little hard to see. So you can also click an item and you can see it written right here. As you can guess, normal quality is pretty useless. Nothing special happens. But the higher levels of quality also add even more item power to your equipment. A good level adds plus 20 IP, outstanding plus 40, excellent plus 60, and masterpiece a whopping 100. It's always worth checking this out when you're buying something. Sometimes there's a huge difference in price between item qualities, but often I find the same item for the same price at normal quality and outstanding quality. That's like a free 40 extra IP. Again, a lot more worth it than paying a fortune to level up a specialization past 100. So, to sum everything up, these are all the ways you can increase your item power. Level up in a skill so you can use higher tier items which have higher base IP. Get items with enchantments on them, which can also increase base IP. Level up in specializations to get higher mastery bonuses. If you do the above 3, you will get an additional mastery modifier bonus from a combination of a high tier item and a high mastery bonus. And finally, make sure you get high item quality. A couple tips to keep in mind. First, remember that special items like artifact, crystal or Avalonian items have higher IP than the general ones. So if you want to use, for example, plate boots, but you want to use the rejuvenating sprint ability, it's actually included in all different plate boots. So you should buy the item with the highest IP, which is the Avalonian ones. Boots of Valor, which have 100 more IP than the regular ones. And second is overcharge. This is one more way to increase your IP. By buying siphoned energy, and you can use 10 siphoned energy to give a 100 IP boost to everything you're wearing for 30 minutes. But then there is a 15% chance of it breaking afterwards. Then you can activate it again for no additional cost of siphoned energy, extending it for another 30 minutes, and then the chances of your gear breaking goes to 30%. Do not do this when you're exploring a new weapon, but when you're more experienced and doing more risky combat. Overcharging is really worth it in a life or death moment, because I would rather be at my strongest for a small fee and have a way better chance of winning a fight rather than not paying and then losing the fight. The repair bill after overcharging is less than buying everything over again, unless you are the unluckiest individual and everything breaks. Then you're screwed. And that's it for now on item power, folks. I would love to stay in chat, but unfortunately I'm getting mauled by this group of gankers here. Even though I have pretty good item power, as you can see, that's not always enough. That's why my next video will be on safety strategies to escape from an attack in a lethal zone. Peace out, everyone!